Cross one state line with your concealed carry permit, and you could be facing felony charges, even though you're 100% legal back home. Today, I'm breaking down 7 critical facts about H.R. 38 concealed carry reciprocity that could determine whether you travel armed legally or end up in handcuffs. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this bill does, whether it's actually going to pass, and how to protect yourself right now. This matters because right now, this exact scenario is playing out. A gun owner from Florida drives through New Jersey with his legally permitted handgun. He gets pulled over for a broken taillight. The officer finds the gun. That Florida permit means nothing in New Jersey. He's arrested, charged with unlawful possession of a weapon, a second-degree felony carrying 3 to 5 years in prison, and a $15,000 fine. His life just changed forever because he crossed an invisible line on the highway. Number 1. What H.R. 38 actually does to your carry rights. Here's the simple version. If you have a valid concealed carry permit from your home state, or your state allows permitless carry, H.R. 38 would force other states to recognize that permit when you travel there with a handgun. Think of it like your driver's license. You don't take a new driving test every time you cross state lines. H.R. 38 tries to apply that same principle to concealed carry. But here's where gun owners make a dangerous mistake. They think national reciprocity means they can ignore all state gun laws. Wrong. Dead wrong. Under H.R. 38, you still have to follow every local restriction about where you can carry. Schools, government buildings, private property, all those rules still apply. You still can't carry where that state says you can't carry. Here's what H.R. 38 specifically covers. It applies to handguns only, not rifles, not shotguns. It's focused on concealed carry, not open carry. It would require states to recognize out-of-state permits, and in some cases, permitless carry status. And it includes language designed to protect you from being arrested just because an officer doesn't like that you're from out of state. The bill was reintroduced in 2025. It's got strong Republican support, and it already passed the House Judiciary Committee. That means it cleared its first major hurdle. This isn't some fantasy bill that dies in committee. It's moving. The question is how far. But before you celebrate, there's something about the current political landscape that could kill this bill completely. Number 2, the current political reality that decides everything. Right now, H.R. 38 has passed the House Judiciary Committee and is waiting for a full House vote. If it passes the House, it still has to survive the Senate and then either get signed or vetoed by the president. Here's where most gun owners don't understand the math. The House is relatively friendly territory. Republicans have the votes if leadership brings it to the floor. But the Senate is where bills like this go to die. You need 51 votes to pass, and depending on how leadership handles it, possibly 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. In a closely divided Senate, just 3 or 4 moderate senators from swing states can block the entire thing. Then you've got the White House. Even if H.R. 38 somehow clears both chambers of Congress, it lands on the president's desk. A president who campaigned on stricter gun laws is not going to sign a bill that expands concealed carry rights nationwide. That's political suicide for their base. Here's the brutal truth. Similar versions of this bill have been introduced before. They've passed committees, they've made headlines, and then they've quietly died. In 2017, H.R. 38 passed the House with 231 votes. It never even got a vote in the Senate. That's not pessimism. That's the historical pattern you need to understand. The consequence of not understanding this? Gun owners are out there right now thinking reciprocity is a done deal, so they're traveling armed across state lines assuming they're protected. They're not. They're risking felony charges based on a bill that hasn't become law. This next mistake is even more dangerous because it involves the groups actively fighting to kill H.R. 38. Number 3, the opposition that's blocking your rights. You need to understand who's fighting against H.R. 38 and why, because their arguments are what's stopping this bill in the Senate. And whether you agree with them or not, ignoring them is how gun owners lose. First, gun control organizations like Everytown and Giffords are pouring money into campaigns against national reciprocity. Their argument is simple. This bill would force strict states to accept permits from states with weak or no training requirements. They claim this increases the risk of gun violence in major cities. They're running ads in swing states right now targeting senators on the fence. Second, some major law enforcement organizations are officially opposed. Groups representing police officers argue it's nearly impossible to verify an out-of-state permit during a traffic stop at 2 in the morning. They're worried about fake permits, altered documents, and states with minimal vetting. And some versions of reciprocity include civil penalties if an officer wrongly detains a lawful carrier. That terrifies police unions. Third, you've got the states' rights argument. Governors and attorneys general from strict states say Washington, D.C. is overriding their voters' choices. If California residents voted for strict permitting requirements, why should someone from a permitless carry state be able to ignore those standards just because they're visiting? Here's the dollar cost of this opposition. Anti-gun groups spent over $47 million in the last election cycle targeting gun rights candidates. They're organized, they're funded, and they have full-time lobbyists working every single senator who's undecided. Meanwhile, many gun owners send angry tweets and think they're activating politically. The consequence for you? Even if you support H.R. 38, even if you call your senator once, it might not be enough. The opposition is professional and relentless. Unless gun owners match that intensity, this bill will die the same death it's died before. But there's one scenario where H.R. 38 could actually become law, and it depends entirely on what happens next. Number 4. The 2026 election that changes everything. Whether H.R. 38 becomes law or dies permanently comes down to the 2026 midterm elections. Here's the political calculus you need to understand. If Republicans expand their Senate majority and the White House is friendly to gun rights, H.R. 38 or a similar bill gets exponentially better odds. You're looking at a potential window where both chambers and the presidency align. That's when big Second Amendment legislation actually moves. If Democrats hold or gain Senate seats and the White House remains opposed, H.R. 38 is dead on arrival. It might pass the House for show, it might generate fundraising emails on both sides, but it will never become law. That's not opinion. That's how divided government works on controversial issues. Here's what most gun owners miss. The midterms aren't just about the presidency. Senate races in swing states like Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin could decide whether you get national reciprocity or not. A single Senate seat can flip control. Control determines which bills get hearings, which get votes, which get signed. The consequence of not voting or not paying attention, you lose by default. Gun control groups don't take elections off. They're registering voters right now. They're targeting districts. They're organized. If gun owners sit home thinking their rights are safe, they wake up to a Senate that kills H.R. 38 without even debating it. So mark your calendar. The 2026 midterms are on November 3rd. If you want national reciprocity, that's your chance. If you skip it, don't complain when your permit still doesn't work across state lines. This next point is where gun owners make their most expensive legal mistake. Number 5. The mistake that costs you $50,000 in legal fees. Here's the trap. Gun owners hear about H.R. 38. They see headlines saying national reciprocity advances, and they assume it's already law. So they pack their concealed carry and drive from Texas to New York thinking they're protected. They're not. They're committing a felony. Until H.R. 38 is signed into law by the president, your permit only works in states that currently have reciprocity agreements with your state. That's it. No exceptions. No gray area. If your home state and the state you're visiting don't have an agreement, carrying there is illegal, period. Let me give you a real example of what this costs. A man from Pennsylvania was arrested in New Jersey in 2013. He had a valid Pennsylvania carry permit. He declared his firearm to a police officer, thinking he was doing the right thing. New Jersey doesn't recognize Pennsylvania permits. He was charged with unlawful possession of a weapon, a second-degree felony. He spent 3 years in legal hell. His attorney fees exceeded $50,000. He faced up to 10 years in prison. He eventually got into a pre-trial intervention program that required him to give up his gun rights temporarily. That's the consequence of assuming reciprocity exists before it's law. $50,000. 3 years of your life consumed by legal battles. The possibility of a decade in prison. All because he thought his permit protected him everywhere. Here's what you do instead. Right now, today, before you travel with your firearm, you go to a reciprocity map. handgunlaw.us, usconcealedcarry.com, or your state's attorney general website. You verify, not assume, verify that your destination state recognizes your permit. You check the date the map was last updated because reciprocity agreements change. And if there's any doubt, you leave your firearm at home or you transport it unloaded and locked according to federal safe passage laws. The next issue could cost you your freedom permanently. Number 6. The federal crime you don't know you're committing. Even if H.R. 38 passes, there's a federal law that can still send you to prison, and most gun owners have never even heard of it. It's called the Gun-Free School Zones Act, 18 U.S.C. Section 922Q. This federal law makes it a crime to possess a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school. That's not on school property. That's within 1,000 feet. In urban and suburban areas, You can't drive 3 blocks without being within 1,000 feet of a school. If you're carrying concealed without realizing there's a school nearby, you're committing a federal offense punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Now, there's an exception. If you have a valid state carry permit and that state issued it to you, the federal law doesn't apply. But here's the trap. If you're relying on HR 38 reciprocity and you're in a state that didn't issue your permit, some prosecutors could argue the exception doesn't cover you. That's a legal gray area that won't be settled until someone gets arrested and fights it in court, possibly you. The consequence? You think national reciprocity makes you safe. You're driving through New Jersey, you've got your Texas permit, HR 38 just passed, you think you're golden. You park near a school without realizing it. A prosecutor decides to make an example out of you using the federal school zone law. Now you're facing federal charges on top of any state charges. Here's your protection. First, learn where schools are in any area you're traveling through. Use Google Maps before you leave. Second, even if you have reciprocity, avoid parking or stopping near schools. Third, understand that federal law stacks on top of state law. HR 38 doesn't automatically shield you from federal prosecution. But the biggest threat to your carry rights isn't even in the legislation. It's in how it gets enforced. Number 7. The enforcement nightmare that puts you in handcuffs. Let's say HR 38 becomes law tomorrow. You're celebrating because now your permit works in all 50 states. Here's the problem nobody's talking about. Enforcement is going to be an absolute disaster, and you're the one who suffers. Picture this. You're from Wyoming, a permitless carry state. You're driving through Maryland. You get pulled over. The Maryland officer asks if you have any weapons. You say yes, and you explain that you're legally carrying under HR 38. That officer has to verify that you're actually a resident of Wyoming, that Wyoming actually allows permitless carry, and that you're not prohibited from possessing a firearm. How does he verify that at 2 in the morning on the side of a highway? He can't run your Wyoming permitless carry status because there's no card to scan. Different states have different databases. Some of those databases aren't accessible to out-of-state officers. So what happens? You get detained while he figures it out. Maybe you get arrested just to be safe while they sort it out at the station. Even if you're 100% legal, you're in handcuffs. HR 38 includes language that's supposed to prevent this. It says you can't be arrested or detained just for exercising your reciprocity rights. But that language won't stop an officer who's genuinely confused about whether your documentation is valid. And it won't stop an officer in a strict state who philosophically opposes the law and decides to arrest first and let you fight it in court later. The consequence? Even with national reciprocity, you could still face arrest, detention, vehicle searches, and confiscation of your firearm. Even if you win eventually, that's thousands in legal fees, hours or days in custody, and your gun impounded. The law might be on your side, but enforcement is unpredictable. Here's how you protect yourself. First, carry documentation. If you have a physical permit, carry it even if your state is permitless carry. Having a card to show helps. Second, carry proof of residency. Driver's license, vehicle registration, something that proves you're actually from the state you claim. Third, know your rights, but be respectful. Arguing with an officer on the side of the road has never made things better. Comply, document everything, and if you're wrongly arrested, you fight it with a lawyer, not in the street. Let's recap the 7 critical facts about HR 38 that determine whether you travel legally or end up in handcuffs. 1. HR 38 would create national reciprocity for concealed carry permits, but you still have to follow every state's restrictions on where you can carry. 2. The bill is moving in the House, but faces a brutal fight in the Senate and likely a veto from the White House. 3. Organized opposition from gun control groups and some law enforcement organizations is spending millions to kill this bill. 4. The 2026 midterm elections will determine whether HR 38 has any realistic chance of becoming law. 5. Assuming reciprocity exists before HR 38 is signed into law can cost you $50,000 in legal fees and years of your life. 6. Federal laws like the Gun-Free School Zones Act can still trip you up even if HR 38 passes. 7. Enforcement of national reciprocity will be chaotic and unpredictable, putting you at risk of wrongful arrest even when you're legal. Any one of these issues could cost you your freedom, your gun rights, or tens of thousands of dollars in legal defense. Don't let confusion about gun laws put you at risk. Subscribe to Guns Law Guide so you never miss an update that could keep you legal and protected. I break down complex gun laws every week so you can carry with confidence. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Next video, I'm covering the 7 concealed carry mistakes that get you arrested even in your home state. Mistakes law-abiding gun owners make every single day without realizing it. Click that video right now. I'll see you there.